I'm here.
The number one story in your mind this week is?
Killing the SS, a huge success.
Okay, the number two story in your mind.
The biggest story in the country is if the President of the United States can psychologically and emotionally survive the daily attacks on him. And you won't hear that anywhere else but here in the no-spin zone. Because, if you step back away from the hysteria and you look at Donald Trump, he's a human being. You might not like him. You might think he's not capable of being president, whatever. But any human being put under the barrage of hatred directed toward him and having to defend himself every hour on the hour from whatever charge, the charge du jour, got to take a psychological toll on him. And that is the story, the big story about all of this.
Okay, so let's take this apart just a bit. First of all, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen, Donald Trump said, low-level guy. Nobody believes that. Was he a low-level guy?
Let me tell you about Michael Cohen, all right? I've never met the man. At one point in the campaign, I was talking to Trump on the phone, and I was trying to get him on the Factor that night, and he said, well, I can't do it, but take Michael Cohen, my attorney. And I said, why would I do that? I'm not going to put him on the air. He's just going to tell me what you want him to say. I mean, why don't I just put a puppet on there? Okay? A real puppet. Okay? And that was the end of that conversation. So Cohen was basically what they call a fixer. And when Trump had an annoyance, which was what these women were to him, an annoyance, Cohen would deal with it. So I don't know any more than that. I don't know what Trump said to Cohen. No one does. But Cohen's charge, working for Donald Trump, was to fix things, fix annoyances, and that's what he did.
Okay. The problem has come in now with the National Enquirer, that the National Enquirer has changed their story, and now they're saying, okay, we did take direction from Donald Trump to pay this one person off. That's a felony. Cohen, do we have the audio of Michael Cohen on Good Morning America today when they asked him, why should we believe you now? Listen.
So what do you say to people, and there are a lot of people who would be watching who are going to be thinking, but wait a second, he lied for so long. Why should we believe him now? What's the answer to that?
What do you mean lied? Lied about what? At the Trump Organization, it's a microcosm of even just the New York real estate market. What did we lie about? It's New York real estate. Yes, it's the greatest product ever created. Is that a lie?
Well, but you pleaded guilty to lying to Congress.
Yes.
So why should we believe you now?
Because the special counsel stated emphatically that the information that I gave to them was credible and helpful. There's a substantial amount of information that they possess that corroborates the fact that I am telling the truth.
So you're done with the lying?
I am done with the lying. I am done being loyal to President Trump. And my first loyalty belongs to my wife, my daughter, my son, and this country.
Take that apart for me, Bill.
I don't take Michael Cohen seriously, number one. So your listeners, so people who listen to us every Friday, please take that into account. I'm not like any of the commentators on cable news or George Stephanopoulos. I don't take him seriously, all right? Which means that whatever he says means nothing to me. Nothing.
Hang on just a second. I think that's where most, not the media, but I think that's where most Americans are.
No doubt about it.
That's
a very astute observation.
Yeah.
Okay? So whatever he says means nothing to me as an American.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's number one. Number two, Robert Mueller had nothing to do with Michael Cohen and what he did or did not do by paying women. He referred that case out to the DA, to the federal attorney, U.S. attorney in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Why did Mueller do this? For two reasons. Number one, that had nothing to do with Russian collusion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So Mueller goes, I can't get involved with this because it doesn't come under my mandate. And number two, Mueller knew that Cohen's a sleazy weasel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I'm sorry, but he is. All right? And he didn't want to be associated with a sleazy weasel. He also knew that the careerists in the attorney's office, U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, would be more than happy to take this guy apart, which they did. They got into his taxi cab business. They got into his dodging of taxes. And then there came a point where they just said, look, Michael, just tell us what we want to know, and then we'll try to get you a light deal. And Cohen did.
Okay, so
Cohen.
Right. Okay, hang on just a second. So I agree with that analysis. I think I would add it would be irresponsible of anyone in the justice system if they did find a crime that they didn't pass it on for further investigation to the appropriate people.
Maybe, but look, you're giving Mueller too much credit in the sense that nobody would pursue this kind of a thing. This is what they call brand protection.
Mm-hmm.
Brand protection. Trump is a brand, okay? So he's now running for president, and he doesn't want his brand attacked any more than it's already been. So these women try to get money from him, okay? So he says to his personal fixer, take care of it. Take care of it. And the fixer does.
Right.
And then, of course, the women come back for more money.
But it's not a problem with Cohen. What it is a problem with, American media, the Inquirer. Because
look, I don't know what happened in the Inquirer. Again, none of us are privy to that. But this is the way business is done at that level. See, I'm waiting for the New York Times to investigate itself because they've had beaucoup private settlements in that newspaper, and so is every major corporation in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting for that. But the National Enquirer is basically in business to scandalize people. That's what they do. All right, so Trump has a relationship with the publisher. Packer, I think his name is, right? Okay.
Packer,
so, yeah, Packer calls him and says, hey, I got this woman and she wants to talk all about your affair, and what should I do? And Trump says, well, can you make her go away? And Packer says, yeah, I can do whatever I do. So they give her money, and she tells the story, and they don't print it. That happens all the time.
Right. There's some critical things that you've left out, but we don't know if they're true or not, so I'm not going to nitpick on this. I want to get back to there's no reason to believe the National Enquirer. There's no reason to believe Cohen.
But I do believe the National Enquirer in this instance. I think that happened. Okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is there's no from my point of view, I'm not a lawyer. But I've certainly had many lawyers on BillO'Reilly.com. Smart. And very few of them see any crime at all. This is business as usual, protection of a brand, a civil settlement. All right? And now they're trying to link it into the campaign finance, but it's a stretch, as we saw in the John Edwards case. It's a stretch.
Right.
Now, they can do it. What is it, the indict the ham sandwich line? Okay, they can do it, but do Americans feel that this was some kind of heinous, well-thought-out plot to subvert American election law?
So here's the thing. In the 1970s, the Republicans eventually joined the Democrats and said, we can't have this going on in the White House. So we need to make sure that we have somebody telling us the truth. And they didn't come to the table voluntarily, but they were eventually dragged to that table.
Who are you talking about now?
Hang on. Nixon, okay?
Okay.
And impeachment. Then we had Clinton. And so the people that were against Nixon and said we have to know if the president is telling the truth, and the president he can't perjure himself, he can't lie. All of a sudden, they were fine with Clinton.
Sure, because
Right.
it's hypocrisy all day long.
Correct.
But you just raised a point and this, you're going to be amazed by my brilliance right now. Are you ready? Everybody ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In Watergate, there was a crime. Somebody broke in, somebody took stuff, and they found them. In Clinton, there was a incident involving an intern inside the White House. No question it happened.
Perjury.
Here, okay, nobody knows what it is, this campaign finance thing. Nobody knows what this is. Was there a secret payoff? What? Nobody knows.
Right.
There's no solid crime evidence. It's theoretical.
Right. Correct. But if there is overwhelming evidence, as Cohen says, that might mean a blue dress of sorts, but I don't know what the crime is at that point.
You have to have a tape recording where Trump would walk into Cohen and say, hey,
correct.
I want you to violate campaign finance laws and pay these babes off because I want to run for president and win. Thanks. Let me know how it works out. And
good.
Then he leaves.
All right. So we're going to get to the the ramifications, all of this, and some of the other stories of the day with Bill O'Reilly. Mr. Bill O'Reilly.
I'm back.
Let's take a look at. You want to talk about the person of the year? That's your article. The
Absolutely.
Person of the year.
Okay, so Time Magazine, which is on the ropes and really not a factor in this country anymore, which is stunning when you understand the history of that magazine. They select journalists at risk for their Persons of the Year, okay? Mm-hmm. But if you really deeply look into what they were doing, they were basically trying to humiliate Trump for saying fake news all over the place. Mm-hmm. Yes, they put Khashoggi up and they put the 5 Maryland journalists who were slaughtered by a psycho up, and that's good. I have no beef with that. But the overall arch of the article was Trump is a villain, we hate him, and the usual. Okay. So the no spin Person of the Year is a person who helped this country. All right? So everybody should know my criteria, and that is Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. Now, the reason I selected Senator Graham was twofold. Number one, he single-handedly saved Brett Kavanaugh and his family from destruction, and they should not have been destroyed. So just on that basis alone, he saved 4 human beings from destruction. And then he saved every single American citizen from losing a fundamental right, and that is you are innocent until proven guilty, due process. Now, what Senator Graham did involved courage, articulation, and risk, and that's why he is the no-spin Person of the Year.
I can't even believe that I actually agree with that. It's not. It's like
Lindsey
Graham of all people. I never would have thought I said anything positive about him. I'm not a huge fan, but what he did
but you agree, Stu, right? Because the overwhelming logic of my argument is impossible to refute.
So you're taking credit for Lindsey Graham's achievements. That's what I would expect.
I'm taking credit. Here's what I'm taking credit for, Stu. You ready?
Yes.
The one moment this year of lucidity in your life is compliment of me.
I will say, though, I have not always had faith in Lindsey Graham. And the fact that he was the one who was brave enough to stand up and say, hey, yeah, we don't convict people without any evidence. That's not what the society is supposed to be about. He deserves a lot of credit for that.
And he deserves to be the no-spin man of the year. And he is, but you'll never see that anywhere else because this is a country that now does not value honesty and courage.
And
does not value it.
he is this is a good example of outrage used the correct way. He was outraged about something real. He was outraged about something that mattered. It was genuine outrage. People were feeling exactly the same way. He handled himself entirely appropriately at the time. He stated it eloquently, and then he was done.
Not all people. He was viciously attacked for doing that.
Yeah, well, that's
by both the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee and the media. So that required courage. I wrote a long column, not long, but I wrote a column on this for BillO'Reilly.com, which posted now. And basically I made the point is that, there aren't many courageous people anymore in the public eye. They're just not. And when you see one sticking up for you, because Lindsey Graham wasn't sticking up for his party, he wasn't sticking up for himself, he was sticking up for every single American who could be accused of anything at any time and saying we cannot convict on allegations, as these senators are doing in front of the nation. I mean, that took guts. And it wasn't a self-motivated statement. It was a statement to help all Americans understand their rights, and that their rights are under siege from the far left.
I think that's why it was effective, because if it had seemed prepared
or contrived, or self-serving,
if it was like, arrest me, I'm Spartacus, I'm Spartacus, arrest me, it would have gone nowhere.
Sincere.
Yeah, it was sincere.
And in the process, because there's always unintended consequences of everything you do and say when you're in public eye. He destroyed the candidacies of Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren. They're done. Okay, they cannot get any traction because of Lindsey Graham, because people are going to say, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want that progressive far-left culture having power over me.
All right, Bill O'Reilly, we continue with him in just a moment. Stand by. 10 seconds back. Okay, let me tell you about our update on the border. Beep, 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 beep. Name, Alfonso Guerrero. Love Alfonso.
Huge Alfonso fan.
Oh,
myself.
My gosh.
Yes.
So he walked into the U.S. consulate in Tijuana, Mexico, and he said, I have a list of demands from the caravan. Now, I always like to hear, the people who are like, help me, please. When they come up, help me, please. I've got a list of demands. And it always kind of works for me, softens my heart just a little bit. So he's got a list. The caravan is demanding, if they're not granted immediate asylum, they want the following. 1, $50,000 in cash for every caravan member. I think that sounds reasonable.
$50,000 in cash for every caravan
Have you tried
member.
to catch a bus back to Honduras from Tijuana? Very expensive.
Long bus. So they're saying these things, if we give them these things, they'll leave.
They'll leave. Otherwise, we will not go anywhere.
Is it a French caravan? Is that what
kind
that was?
of.
Okay.
I bet there are some French people there.
Probably.
Yes. After all, we've heard that some of the worst people are in the caravan. There's got to be Frenchmen. Two, the immediate removal of all U.S. economic and military assets in Honduras.
Okay, well, that's a nice ask.
Wait a minute. Hold it just a second. Wait a minute. And failure to comply with these things will result in the caravan continuing to try to penetrate the U.S. border. Help us, please. Let me give you a list of some Marxist things.
So they want 50 G's each, and they want us to remove all
economic and military assets.
Now, if their goal was too much military power for the United States in dealing with their country, why would they want to come to the country in the first place?
Yeah, let me ask you this. If they were like, hey, we're really, really poor and it's really bad in Honduras, why would you say stop sending us money?
It's almost as if there's another motivation here.
Could be. Now, it's just maybe it's probably just me, but if you're trying to appear like, a grassroots movement, for as a group of migrants who are just trying to escape the dangers of your own country, you might want to tone down the crazy Marxist rhetoric just a little bit. I mean, sure, it's the holidays. Who doesn't love the leftist freedom fighter shtick? We all love
great.
that. But demanding millions of dollars and the removal of U.S. military from Honduras kind of screams, hey, we're Marxist communist revolutionaries. I'm a Marxist terrorist, doesn't it? I mean, you're not wearing the shirt that lights up like yours, but
almost.
Okay. This is the same thing as if you would have come up to the embassy wearing a beret, shouting "Viva la Revolution" while firing off an RPG. I mean, it's come up on your motorcycle looking like Che. So this is just angry rhetoric, isn't it? Isn't it, Stu? I mean, What I just said about this poor man who is just looking for asylum. Mr. Guerrero, he's just a poor guy just like you. He's got a family. Back in 1987, he tried to get asylum in Mexico. And he got asylum in Mexico. Well, he was suspected by the Honduran and U.S. government for, wait for it, Marxist left-wing terrorism. It's just weird.
Well, everybody's got a couple of charges.
Sure, of course we all do. 1987, Honduras was ground zero for the U.S. and Soviet proxy forces fighting in the Cold War. The Contra rebels were actually based there, and the leftist terrorists would sometimes carry out operations in the country in response. So it was August 8th. A bomb was thrown into the China Palace restaurant, which, of course, imperialist capitalists and their China Palace restaurants. Anyway, it was just a few miles away from the U.S. military base in Honduras. 6 American soldiers were injured in the blast. Alfonso Guerrero was the primary suspect. He escaped to Mexico and claimed asylum. The Reagan administration charged the Mexican government for, quote, harboring a terrorist for granting Guerrero protection. Now, that's the past. Guerrero's turned his life around.
Oh.
Now he's just a poor, struggling Honduran who doesn't wish anyone harm. He just wants a better life for his family.
With the Soviet Union gone, Marxist terrorism does not pay what it used to.
It doesn't. How is it? He's struggling every day. And the millions of dollars that he's demanding, it will help them. And he's just asking for a little, just a few little political things for his country. Just a few demands. When will the media actually come out and go, oh, wow, we got that one wrong? Answer, never, because they didn't get it wrong. They were lying to you from the beginning. Anyone with any common sense or an ounce of honesty could have seen this thing coming from the beginning. Oh, and we did. But anybody who did their homework, anybody who did say these things, they were, of course, labeled an extremist, a hate monger, a racist, a danger to society. As I see it, the former Marxist terrorist